So this is the new FR7. That's our first pan-tilt zoom camera with a full-frame sensor and also with a changeable mount. So PTZ stands for pan-tilt zoom. It's a camera that can be controlled XY and also the zoom of the camera. So it's everywhere popular where you cannot put a controller, a camera person just behind the camera, where it needs to be remote. Like for example, on stage, in a theater play, in the ceiling, on top, everywhere where you cannot have somebody controlling it directly. In Big Brother types of application, for example. And especially in the last 2 years within the pandemics, it has been very interesting to have a controllable camera putting somewhere close to an actor. So this is the new FR7. That's our first pan-tilt zoom camera with a full-frame sensor and also with a changeable mount. That means you can use any kind of E-mount lenses and put that onto this camera and create stunning images with shallow depths of field and create beautiful images that works quite well together with, for example, our FX3 and our FX6 cameras. So the sensor that we are using here is the 10.3 megapixel full-frame sensor with 15 plus stops of dynamic range. Very similar to the FX6, it has a built-in ND filter, electronic ND filter. That means, especially in this environment where there can be a lot of light and changing light, this built-in electronic ND that you can control remotely is perfect. It's indeed the first time somebody put a full-frame sensor in the PTZ. Because that has never been done before. You had always had smaller sensors in there, usually with fixed lenses. That means you had a limitation in terms of wide angle and zoom. Now you have the freedom of the whole lineup of E-mount cameras and can use the lens of your choice and create the similar image to your other cameras. Indeed, that's a good question. What we have done here is to have the sensor block moving. You have two rods underneath and you can balance the whole system depending on the lens that you're using. Of course, if you are having smaller lenses, then the image block can be further in the front. If you're having bigger lenses, then you need to push it back and balance. The whole Sony E-mount lens lineup works. Of course, if you have really big zoom lenses, then the PTZ will have limitations. If it's in the ceiling and pointing down, no issues. If it's standing like this, maybe there's a limitation. Well, the rods are there because you have the flexibility of your lens. It can be, if you have bigger lenses that of course have a considerable weight, you can put a lens support underneath to support the weight of the lens. But you could also use that to attach other things like external motors if you want. You have two choices. Either you work with the ARM IP500. This is our kind of hardware-based controller with a large joystick with a zoom rocker, so you can control the camera just very similar to the camera itself. Or you're using the free app or the application, the login, that gives you the access to all the interfaces, to all the control of the camera. That means you can control the pan-tilt zoom, all the picture settings, even the internal recording and the setup of the camera can be done remote. So if you have a face, for example, you have an interview of a couple of people on stage, then you automatically, like in other alpha cameras, the eye autofocus is automated. But if you want to track an object, then you simply do, like I'm doing here, I'm touching a person, and then this person will be tracked and the focus will be on that person. Of course, this works with a touchscreen display like this iPad, but it even works if you are controlling this by a laptop, simply by a click of the mouse. No, this is not included at the moment. At the moment, this is only face recognition and object recognition within the frame. It doesn't move the camera if this person is moving outside of the frame. You have the freedom of controlling it with any device that can access that network. So again, if it's an iPad like here, if it's a laptop, if it's your mobile phone, anything that you can connect to the network of the camera. But again, you can also have the freedom of having a hardware-based controller where you can really easily and smoothly do the panning and zooming. Yeah, that's actually the first camera from Sony, first PTZ camera that can do internal recording. So here we are using the same internal recording as, for example, with an FX6. You have 2 card slots. You can record XABC content on these card slots. You can even output raw data over SDI, again similar to the FX6, and record that on an external recorder like Atomos or others. So the beauty of that camera is indeed that you can use it together with other cameras in the cinema line. So with FX3, FX6, FX9. First thing is that the logs, the lookup tables, the S-Cinetone is exactly the same. Second thing is that the remote control via the app is actually quite similar to the design that we have in FX9 and also in Venice. It is taking the same concept of control and bringing this to the PTZ world. Inside of this camera, obviously you can output by SDI, but you can also output by RTMP, SRT, or NDI-HX. So you have the freedom of all these signals. Even inside of this camera, you can transmit via fiber cables to a remote location. So again, this gives you the freedom of using this camera in any kind of environment. Of course, it does gen lock, it does timecode in. You have an audio input because you can recording in the camera. So all kind of interfaces that enables you to have the freedom of using that recording on stage, for example, or in live production environments where you use the camera signal directly on a big screen or, for example, in a live stream. So this is the online interface of the camera. You can control all the settings of the camera. This is the live view. You, of course, have the recording view of the content that you have recorded onto the camera, and you can do the setting of the camera with all the functions that you usually would do in the menu. In the live setting, you have direct access to the most important functions like ND filters, shutter speed, all of this. You can control the camera in pan tilt zoom mode, and you can, just by a double click, you are getting back the positions that you have pre-recorded, and the camera will swing to the position that you have already entered. So it's very easy and versatile functionality in this app. So the FR7 will be available from November this year, and the price is 9,100 euros without VAT. Of course, this depends on the local VAT in each country.